the quick overview of his work is in this first 20-year period or early 20-year period will be in chronological order. And I just wanted to mention that many of these buildings I'm showing are on the Spokane Register of Historic Places and on the National Register of Historic Places. But sadly, there's a number of them that are also no longer with us. So this is another reason to bring the attention on Pehrson's work to the public, and hopefully for greater preservation activities in the future of what we have. Okay, I think we're going now. So this is Spokane in 1926. This is the beginning of the really prolific period and bird's eye view of Spokane in 1926, his really prolific period. So this is what our city looked like at this time. And like I said, these are in chronological order. I am not going to talk about the Davenport Hotel and Cutter and Malgrim and Pehrson because our guests are going to talk about this in detail. They're presenting more like case studies of how certain important buildings in his portfolio were developed. And I'm just going to breeze through, but it does start with Cutter and Malgrim and Pehrson's relationship with L.M. Davenport himself. Do you guys know anything about this house?
Flower field is down the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's now St. George's.
Oh, okay.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I could not find that. And so I was really curious. Oh, that's really awesome. Okay, awesome. So again, chronological order, 1929, circa 1929, I said. And so this is another area where Pehrson's work overlapped with Kirtland Cutter. This is actually the Chancery in 1910 as designed by Cutter. And 1924, here's Pehrson's iteration of the Chancery. And this is the building you've heard so much about the last couple of years that is threatened with demolition. And you'll be talking about this a little bit too?
Not much.
Not much? Okay. Well, this is what it is. And one of its iterations was the Great Northwestern Life Building. Like I said, it's in service 1924, as built, as designed by Pehrson. And then on the right, there is a current photo. And 1924, we're still in the early 20s. This is no longer extant. It was right downtown. I don't have the address off the top of my head, but this is just to show that this would be a typical small scale commercial building that he might have as perhaps a bread and butter kind of project, but this is the kind of work that was being done in the 1920s. And another car building, the Eldridge Buick building, which is still in service and is listed in the National Register. They were apparently were very proud of this. There were a lot of ads. The Chronicle building, 1928, you are going to talk about in more depth. And so here's just a couple of shots, which is amazing building, and we still have it.
Okay.
And again, just to show the variety of scale of Pehrson's work in 20 years. The Hibbert residence on Sumner is still extant. The picture on the right is from today. And Hibbert was one half of the department store downtown in the day. And Paulson Medical and Dental Building, 1929, another building that Spokane is very proud of, the largest medical and dental building in the Northwest. And he's renowned for his terracotta work. It's fantastic. Women's Club, 1929, is still going strong. Historic photo on the left, obviously, and current photos on the right. The C.A. Priest, is it? Okay, Priest House. The rear facade on the back and the front facade on the front. I mean, to the right.
Sorry, you're
And here's another building that got a lot of press. The Roosevelt Apartments, 1929, and for $400,000. It was totally rented, which they always bragged about if that was the case. And lobby of the new Roosevelt building, the last word in luxury. And here's some more of Pehrson's terracotta work, which again, he was known for on the Roosevelt Apartments. Holy Trinity Greek Orthodox Church, he designed the left edifice. The right was done in the 50s by architect Frank Torabari. And we will talk about the rookery. The rookery is sort of the reason for SPA's reason to be, where we got started in our advocacy life. Here's the building on the left and really beautiful terracotta work on the right. And of course, this building no longer exists. And the Desert House, Victor Desert House, which is another of his very well-known high-end, to say the least. And you guys will talk about that too. On the left is a photo from, I think, 93. On the right is today. And it just struck me how much color makes or not makes a building. It's beige today. And this is a beautiful building, Stevens County Courthouse, 1936. And here again shows some of the detail that Pehrson incorporated into his buildings. Really, really beautiful detailing. The Kirk Thompson House and in its current appearance, modernistic or modern house, 1936. And the brewery, 1937, still here. And the Centennial Flour Mill. Did you take this picture, Bob?
I think so. Yeah,
I think you did. That's an amazing photo. It's so cool. 1939. And here's the Hotel Florence. This is 1942 in Missoula, also still there. There's period photographs on the bottom and then a postcard on the top. And what Pehrson might be known for outside our immediate region is for the design of Richland and the Hanford Engineer Works Village, which was done in order to get the Manhattan Project off the ground in World War II. And on the left is a layout of what they say is the 1100 area. And Pearson's firm reputedly went from 2.5 people to 350 in order to accomplish this project. And they did everything. They did infrastructure, schools, commercial buildings, housing of all types. And you can see some of the model housing, which they call a lot of this ABC houses today. And finally, the Pehrson Lawrence House, 1946, this gorgeous house, and Pearson's own house, 1946.
All right, well, we're glad that Diane gave that introduction, and it really shows a lot of the breadth of Pearson's work. And like she said, we're going to kind of focus in on just a few projects that we have any knowledge about. So yes, Betsy and I are the third and fourth grandchildren of G.A. Pehrson. This is us in 1965, so I would have been, I'm in the middle. I would have been 10 years old. Betsy would have been about 6 years old. And it was Christmas Day.
So we call our grandfather Baba and our grandmother Beast. So that's what you're going to hear a lot. Because our grandparents lived just a block away, we spent much time with them and at our lake place at Hayden Lake. So I have my memories of he was really always into fitness and very active. And so he would let me ride on his back when he did push-ups. He let me get away with everything like messing up his very nice white hair and letting me talk to him constantly in the car. So I asked my older siblings to chime in, and I heard from my sister Helen, who's watching from Portland. Hi, Helen, for some memories. She told me that Baba was always a very gentle man, and even though we all heard stories about him being a real taskmaster, which we'll talk about, but she spent a lot of time at Baba's office where he let her write and illustrate stories. They weren't that good, but he always acted like they were very special. When she was in high school, she'd walk over to Baba's house to pick him up and drive him to work and herself to school in his Buick. They had great chats along the way in the car. We all spent a lot of time at Beast and Baba's place at Hayden Lake. There was a mountain spring that ran near the house that was part of our property. Baba had built a small footbridge over the stream. There's the bridge. And the stream bed was covered with forget-me-nots. Baba had a small chair that sat beside the bridge. He would always have a glass there where he'd get water from the stream. And after working all day on lake projects, he would sit there beside the stream. One day when Helen was in college, they were sitting there together. She told him she was going on a 5-month study abroad to Peru. Baba said that was good, but no matter how far she traveled, she'd never see anything prettier than right there. And of course, he was right. Our brother Ed, who's watching from Seattle, told me that when he was very young, Bees and Baba lived with him and our parents while they were building their house. Every evening, Baba would read to him stories from the Wizard of Oz books. When Ed was older, each summer he and Baba would paint the boathouse at the cabin at Hayden Lake. And Baba would tell Ed to always do a very good job on whatever project he was working on.
And this is the lake property as it used to look. And these are the cabins that Baba designed and built. The one on the right is a smaller cabin where Bees and Baba could escape from us. And then the larger one there. And we're showing this because Baba always had such a work ethic. He never stood still. And of course, if anybody owns a lake place, you know that that's kind of what it demands, right? And so he was always in motion, just always working on something. So who was this robust Swede? This is G.A. Pehrson, Gustav Albin Pehrson. And all of our lives, for some reason, we heard it pronounced Pehrson, including everybody in our family. But recently I joined the Vasa Swedish American Club in Spokane, and I learned from them that no, it would be Pehrson. And through an acquaintance named Lars Tift that I met at Vasa, my wife and I got to go to Sweden and actually meet some living relatives. This is about 5 years ago. And while there, I was instructed that the proper pronunciation of the last name would be Pehrson. So I'm taking the middle ground. We're going with Pehrson. So Gustav Pehrson was born in 1880 in the circled area, sort of in the center of Sweden. That is north of Karlstad, a small town called Bratfors. And he grew up in an area called Svartoa, which is Black Creek. And his father's name was Per Eriksson. So Gustav was Per's son, Gustav Pehrson. And if you research Pehrson, and if you look up his birth date, you'll get years like 1882 and 1883. But again, my friend Lars Tift showed me the actual birth record of Pehrson. His actual birth year is 1880. So there are two things you've learned, Pehrson and 1880 tonight. So Gustav was the fifth of six children. His father, Per Eriksson, worked in a lumber mill in support of the Iron Age. So about 1880 through 1900 or so. When Gustav had one younger brother named Olaf Rudolf, and he went by Roy. And so when they came of age, they got out of Sweden. They came over to Chicago this is the actual ship, this is the Etruria. And they came to Chicago. Actually, let me go back one slide. Why is this yellow house here? Well, this is Gustav's brother, Edward, who is another designer builder. So he built this family residence in Stockholm, and that house is still there today. I was able to take that picture. So Gustav took up residence in Chicago. He worked for the Bethlehem Steel Company and then for an architectural firm. He was sort of on sabbatical. This is from a later newspaper article in Swedish, as you can see. And Gustav, thank you.
Sorry, you keep talking.
Yes, is there a question?
Yeah.
Great. So Gustav worked at those places. He traveled around the west coast of the US, California and Washington mainly, and he did go to work for Cutter and Malmgren architectural firm in Spokane. And he did this sort of a finite trip. His intention was to return to Sweden and settle down and get to work, which he did. And he found that in Sweden, the traditions were very stifling in Europe, where he had already been to the US and saw what a land of opportunity it was for a young man. So he returned to Chicago and started working there. And somewhere along that line, somebody suggested that he go to Spokane, go to work for Cutter and Malmgren on this new hotel that Louis Davenport was working on.
So Bill Hottel wrote an interesting book about our grandfather and as a thesis at Gonzaga. And he mentions that Baba met our grandmother, Beese, whose name was Bess Broberg. That's so cute. They met at Newman Lake at an area that they called Swedes Point because so many Swedish immigrants congregated there. Bess's father published a Swedish language newspaper out of Chicago. After they married, they had one child, our mom, Betty Pehrson Lawrence.
So during my talk, I'm going to be name checking some people that are some of the sources of some of these images we have. We have Tom MacArthur and Molly Peterson, who are with us tonight, who have helped me a lot with research and some images, as well as Jackie Halverson, who's a member of the Advocates, and I don't see her here tonight, and Blythe Timpson, who's a local realtor, and she's been helpful in me in my research. Also, Teresa Smick, who's a member of this group, and she's with us on Zoom tonight. And it's through her that I got this image. This is an early drawing of the Davenport Hotel. And you can see the towers and some of the foo-foo on the bottom there that didn't make it into the final draft. But Louis Davenport really enjoyed and really respected Gustav Pehrson and his tremendous work ethic, his, you know, get it done, no nonsense, charge ahead type of work ethic. So this is another from that era drawing, and the part that's covered in red shows GAP, his initials. This is a revised by GAP in January. And so the paperwork for the historic Davenport really shows Pehrson's involvement here. Jackie Halverson introduced me to a Spokane architect named Ron Wendell. And Ron Wendell told me that while Kirtland Cutter is the Davenport Hotel's architect of record, a closer look at the original drawings also reveals Pehrson's role as a project architect. Pehrson's name and initials found in the architectural title blocks and shop drawing approvals show a high level of involvement and responsibility in the project. And here's an example of Pehrson's signatures in those shop drawings. And Louis Davenport and Pehrson were very close. This is Pehrson's draft card. And down here you see that L.M. Davenport is a person who would always know Pehrson's address. And you also see on this that the date of birth list is 1883. I don't know why. So during the work on the Davenport, when it's kind of wrapping up the original, Cutter and Pehrson sort of had a falling out, and Pehrson left the scene and he returned to Chicago again. Well, Davenport was so distraught by Pehrson's leaving that Davenport got on a train to Chicago and dragged Pehrson back to finish the hotel, which Pehrson did. And Cutter also told Pehrson that if you come back, I will get you all the work that you can handle. And that is what happened. So there were later renovations and things like that to the Davenport, which Pehrson was absolutely in charge of. And that's all I got to say about that.
Yeah. So throughout the years, we have all met people who worked for Pehrson back when I was younger, and they would find out who I was. And they often said he was such a perfectionist that he could be very hard to work for. He was incredibly nice to all of us, but we heard stories. Hottel confirms this in his book when he mentions that according to some interviews, he would lose his temper and humiliate workers for making mistakes. Pehrson used to boast that he never fired anyone. He just rode the hell out of them until they quit. He would stay up so late while working on the plans for the Davenport that he'd fall asleep at the drafting table and then would call workers in the middle of the night. One report mentioned 4 a.m., not realizing what time it was, or maybe realizing, I don't know, and expecting them to come straight to work.
This is a picture of a dinner happening at the Davenport Hotel, and Pehrson is the one on the far right. There's a gap to Well, to the left of him, that next gentleman over there is our father, Dale Lawrence, but that's what that's about.
Which one?
Um,
Oh, that's your father?
You know what kind of meeting this was?
nope.
Athletic roundtable, maybe? There was a lot of that going on.
Well, yeah, the question is, do we know what this occasion was? And we don't know, but we think maybe the athletic roundtable. So there was a delay in the Davenport Hotel construction between 1906 and 1910. So Pehrson worked on other Cutter projects, which were happening at the time, including, we have here the Spokane Club, Louis Davenport's personal residence, which is on 8th Avenue and is now long gone, and the Chronicle building. So this is from a newspaper. These are both from newspapers here, the drawing of the Chronicle. And this newspaper ad for the Chronicle building, your lady clients or customers will be favorably impressed by your offices in the new Chronicle building. And yes, she looks flabbergasted. And this is a picture from Bill Hotel. I also want to mention a lady named Deanne Darlene. She helped me a lot with information and images for the Chronicle building. And yeah, this is taken from the ground. And of course, one of the features of the Chronicle building are the printer gargoyles, which you kind of see from the ground here. They're not easy to see. Oh, wait, if you're on the roof, you can look at their backs really well. And this photo on the left is my wife, Lynette, and we were up there last fall. She wanted to take a selfie. I had to turn away. I couldn't look because she's extending her arm all the way out there with the phone. And I'm thinking it's gonna drop to the street, but it didn't. So me of little faith. And then one feature of the Chronicle are these lamps, which were co-designed by G.A. Pehrson. On the left here is a newspaper ad for Brown Johnston Electric Company. They designed these along in collaboration with Pehrson. And the lamps, of course, are still there today. This photograph was taken about 2 weeks ago. And we mentioned before the Great Northwest Life Chancery building, early photo of that. More current photo with the for sale sign, and a newspaper from 1923. So 1923, 1924 was the renovation by Pehrson of that building. So at the conclusion of those, Pehrson finally broke out on his own, forming his own firm. And this is from later, this newspaper article about Pehrson. And you can see some of the works that he takes credit for: Davenport Hotel, Chronicle, Review Building, Paulson Medical, which is definitely one, and Culbertson's, and then these homes that were done as Diana mentioned. I will move aside.
Okay.
I will not move aside.
I don't want to talk about that.
No. Okay, so Paulson Medical Dental Building. This is the big behemoth, and this is built along the lines of a Moorish castle. That was the impetus for that. And these are a couple of images that we're showing here from the newspaper. So Spokane's business skyline is altered by the $2.8 million Paulson Medical Center building. And here's a photograph of it taken from the air. And these are originally from our family archive, and we donated them to the Northwest Museum of Arts and Culture, and then I kind of grabbed them back for this. So we want to give credit for there. Now, back in, I believe it's 2015, when the penthouse of the Paulson was made for becoming an event center. And so Betsy and I got a chance to go up and check it out. So we've taken some pictures here, a winter day, and taking some of the view there. You can just about see to Canada from there. Little detail of the fireplace here. And this is, of course, the residence for the Paulson family as they were there. And this proves that we were there back in 2015. And yes, the Centennial Mill, which I have very little to say about, but it came along as a Pehrson edifice in Spokane.
All righty. So Baba designed this house for my parents, our parents, Betty and Dale Lawrence, on the corner of 25th and Garfield. Our mom raised the four of us there. And then I was fortunate to be able to buy the house. And then I raised my children there. And it's still there.
Yep.
And the house was featured in a 1946 American Builder magazine as an example of pioneering spirit in architecture. There's a few views, and I'd like you to notice the exposed beams on the ceiling because you'll see them again in a minute.
And this is page 2 about the Pehrson Lawrence house.
What would you describe the style of that house, like Mediterranean?
Yeah, it was supposed to be Mediterranean, yes. Yeah, stucco and brick. And, yeah.
And then we move to the desert house, the Victor Desert House. And as Diana said before, how iconic that is, right at the large curve on Rockwood Boulevard as you're heading downtown.
You moved there?
No, it's just an example of a Pehrson building,
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I see.
but I was there once and I took these pictures. Now, sharp-eyed advocate members might remember in 2018, the house was opened up for a tour and we were down there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh.
And we want to mention the exposed beams again. He did that again in the living room of this house. The house is for sale. We got to put that out on Zoom. And these are just a few of the pictures that taken that night. And this is sort of a look at the event there. So swimming pool.
This was the SBA? No.
Yes, it was the SBA
Oh, okay.
took a tour this one evening.
Oh, yeah. Quarterly meeting.
And actually, this is right after my wife and I had been to Sweden. So I thought this is great. You have to come to take a look at this place. This is the view from the house there. And you can kind of see just beyond the trees there. That's the Centennial Mill building. So another can't miss feature of our area. And the last major thing we're going to talk about is briefly Richland and Hanford. This caricature is from a magazine, which is called Swedish and America Magazine. And it's about Pehrson's assignment by the Department of Defense to design the city of Richland to accommodate the Hanford engineering works. And a lot of you probably know this, how this came to be, how at 4 a.m. one morning, actually March 9th of 1943, Pehrson received a phone call from Colonel Franklin T. Matthias from Washington, D.C. And Matthias says, "The government has a big architectural and building job out in your state. Are you in a position to take it on?" No. He says, "No, I can't," Pehrson says. "Most of my staff is in the service and I only have 2 men and a girl left." So 3 days later, Colonel Matthias calls again. "Have you reconsidered the proposition?" "Nope." "Well, that's too bad." Click. 2 days later, Matthias calls again. "How do you feel about that job now? Reconsidered?" And Pehrson says, "No." Matthias says, "Well, it's been decided that you are going to take over. Go out and get the men you need. Do you have a car?" "Yes." "Do you know how to get to Richland?" "Yes." "Be there at 2 o'clock today and meet with Lieutenant Colonel Harry R. Cadlick." So Pehrson kept the appointment. And this is a corner of a planning sheet for the Hanford housing, showing Pearson's in it now. So Cadlick at that meeting told him, "Your job is to plan a community to house 15,000 people with every facility found in a city that size: schools, churches, theaters, restaurants, groceries, garages, service stations. By tomorrow morning, I want an estimate from you of what it'll cost." The heck you say? The next morning, Pehrson had the estimate ready. How much sleep do you think he got? And so 8 days after that first phone call, the designing work was underway. And the Hanford project and Pearson's involvement is well documented in a fairly recent book by Richard Nordgren called Richland and Atomic City, as well as a KSPS documentary, Secret Mission Hanford, and other publications. But I wanted to give, a little bit of the backstory of that initial conversation of how he was volunteered. Voluntold. Yeah.
Okay. What's going to happen? Oh, there's some more.
Oh, I forgot. Let's just bang through these. So early shot of Richland. This is the Catholic Hospital from the air, and this is a more finished version. And this is from the Swedish and American magazine, some plans and photos of some of the alphabet houses.
And we have friends here from the alphabet houses.
Yes, we do.
All right. So I just love this picture, but jumping ahead, in 1952, Pehrson was celebrated his 72nd birthday in a room at the Sacred Heart Hospital. He had fallen off a school he was building in Coquilala, Idaho. I think it was on the second floor that he fell off and broke many bones. He was in the hospital for quite some time. So while he was in the hospital, he had a drafting table and 2 telephones installed at his bed so he could work while recovering. He had a serious limp for the rest of his life, and we now realize he probably had lots of aches and pains from that accident, but we never heard a word about it.
And we're very close to wrapping up here. I'll just kind of finish my part by saying, I think when I was 10 years old in grade school, in the summertime, when school had let out, he would have me come down. Mom would drive me down to Pearson's office for a couple of hours, and I would do little chores, and he would pay me something for it. And then I'd go home at lunch, and the rest of the day, I was a kid. I was playing with my friends and whatnot. So basically what I was doing, he would have me make copies of things like tracing paper. So put tracing paper on something and draw. So that was my career there. But the thing about Baba, now he did pass away in 1968 at the age of 88. And what am I trying to say here? He worked the entire time. In fact, he bragged to people that he would die with his boots on, and he was always down at the office. And when he was at home, he was always busy in the garden and with projects, or just spending time with us, letting us ride piggyback on him and muss up his hair. So to us, he was just, just a wonderful Baba.
So my siblings and I have inherited so many wonderful things from G.A. Pehrson. We learned to work hard, stay curious, try new things, rarely sit down, and never complain about getting old. My mom used to tell me that Baba was most interested in people building new, modern, creative buildings. We were all raised to have youthful, upbeat minds, to have careers, hobbies, and fitness activities that we love. And so we so appreciate your interest in our grandfather and his buildings. And we hope that you all hold a bit of his beliefs in staying current, being active, and waking up and getting to work in the middle of the night when a creative spark speaks to you.
That's it.
So, you got good time?
Oh, yeah.
You got questions?
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
We'll do our best.
Yeah.
Well, there was that great picture just before this of him, I guess, that's him.
Yes.
And then who's the woman, do you know?
Her name is Jean Sproul or Sproul.
Oh.
My guess is it's a posed photo for an ad. Because there were times when there was lots of advertisements that he put in the newspaper, and we have a lot of copies for that. It just looks so posed to me, but it's sure cute, huh?
Yeah, it is.
Love her shoes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abruptly, because he was assigned to take on this job at Richland,
Mhm.
design the city and all of the alphabet houses. How did he find all the help, and where did he find all the help?
So they're
He had a
asking,
huge staff.
I'll repeat things on Zoom so he's asking about where he found the staff during the war. I don't know. Yeah.
This is a good source.
Okay.
This is Richland and Atomic City. It's from about 3 years ago. Richard Nordgren. I'll leave the copy here so you can take a look at it.
And presumably had hired them in a hurry.
Exactly,
Well, yeah,
yes.
yeah.
And the KSPS little documentary about it was very good as well. I don't know if that's
Little
still-
documentary.
It's a fabulous documentary that my brother made is very good and gives a lot of information. I don't know if it's available.
Well, sure. You could find it online if you search for KSPS Hanford.
Oh, okay.
You'll find Hanford, Secret Mission Hanford.
Mhm.
And somewhere recently, in kind of getting ready for this, it's something like 800, draftsmen, architects, builders, just get this done right now.
Yeah.
He probably had help.
So I don't think you mentioned whether he had any formal architectural training at all, or you know anything about that?
Well, I know that did he have formal architectural training? And the answer is yes, in Sweden.
What was it, Uppsala Technical?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. Uppsala School, Uppsala Technical School. Yeah, it's a little spotty. I'm not exactly sure of that, but yes, I mean, he did get architectural training and he was licensed as an architect. They all
Like,
necessarily weren't back then.
Cutter wasn't even trained as an architect.
No,
He
that.
became one.
Right. Yeah, Kirtland Cutter was not trained as an architect. He was trained as an artist and a designer, and he was a businessman. And eventually he did have an architectural license about the same time that, Pehrson was there with his. So, and that's fairly common, that it was Cutter's firm that did the historic Davenport, for example. And so Cutter's name is on it. I mean, that happens today with architectural firms. And whoever's in charge of the firm didn't necessarily do everything, but.
Okay, we got
Yeah,
something
but
back.
We should give Cutter and Melbourne should be given credit also for the Davenport.
Oh, and
I'm sure it was a mutual project.
Oh, yes, absolutely a collaborative effort. I mean, I'm sure, I don't know who did what exactly, but certainly I'm sure Cutter came up with the original designs and some of his designs, made it through. So it wasn't just Cutter. So.
And my fabulous brother has done so much work with this. But when we were growing up, no one had heard of Pehrson. And it was like my mom, my grandma were constantly going, no, and finding, articles and writing letters to the editor and trying to convince people in the community about different buildings. So this is a big change. This was just not done,
Well, I'm the same age as you guys. I was born in Spokane, very, very early age. Everybody knew that your grandfather designed the Pehrson building, right?
Yes.
Yes, but it was often just slipped into the newspaper. You just saw Cutter a lot on a lot of things that were even obvious that, yeah. So, but we've, times have changed. So that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, go ahead.
The alphabet house.
The alphabet houses.
Consider you're designing a city of 15,000 residents.
Mhm.
And where did the name come from, the alphabet houses? I'm sure you don't have all a bunch of A's next to each other. In a typical city, they're random patterns so that you're not sitting next to identical houses and things like that. It's basically a source of design for houses for the whole city.
Right. Yeah. So it's a question about the alphabet houses and why. And yes, it was because he wanted them to be creative and interesting looking, even when they were built so quickly. And so came up with several designs. You
Mhm.
want to add anything? Is that good?
I got nothing.
Alphabet house people, we good? Yeah.
They
Okay.
were different models,
Mhm.
and you see that at least when I was working in
You should come
planning
over
and.
here so they can hear you.
When I was working in planning early in my career and in growing up in suburbia, it was the same thing. You have model houses and they are arranged in a certain way and, the infrastructure goes in and I think that was the same way it was done then. Before World War II, it was different, but there were a lot of innovations during World War II on how to mass produce housing. And it really looks like he was part of that because that was just a huge effort.
Yes.
Aren't the various floor plans that you showed in the slides labeled with A, B, C, et cetera?
Yeah. Yes.
Hence.
Yes.
alphabet houses.
Yes.
Repeat the question?
Oh, just that, yes, they were labeled on the picture A, B, C, and D, and that's where the alphabet house came up. Yep. Yes.
My wife and I live in a house that Ross designed, and I think he might have worked for Pehrson. But this is one question I've been wondering about. We have an interesting finish on the woodwork, and I've seen it in the Women's Club in Spokane.
Mhm.
It's kind of a grayish green finish, and I don't know whether you or anyone else in the room might be aware of that. Our house was built in 1928, and it seems to have been common in Spokane up through the 50s. And I wonder if it originated with Pehrson or someone that.
Okay. Yeah. Somebody asked about a grayish green finish on woodwork in a home, and
Interior or exterior?
Interior.
interior, I've nothing. Not, it wasn't in my house. Yeah. It was, yeah.
It's just the color scheme.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I have a 21 bungalow and it pulled up stuff and
Mhm.
and I did some research and it was a prominent colors
Mhm.
and woodworking stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and at least our Bob, I really did do, he was always changing and making things more innovative and interesting, and that was the goal. So, it was up to date, I thought, so one other thing,
What happened to your grandfather's farm?
grandfather's firm,
Yeah.
he kept working and then it went away. It did not last beyond his life, for sure.
No family members were involved with it?
No, the family members became accountant, teacher,
Broadcast.
broadcaster. Yeah. Yeah, not very artistic.
The house on 25th,
Mhm.
so Baba designed that for your father?
For his daughter, for our mom, yeah, and our dad, yeah, yes,
That's right. Your mom was the daughter.
you're right.
What year was that? Joe? Remember?
1946, it was finished.
1946 is
So,
the year that
house-
Very
our parents' house was
Uh-huh.
built.
Yeah, and it was the last, it's a circular lot, and it was the last house built on that lot, so it's actually a quite small lot
Yeah.
and a pretty small house for the neighborhood,
Yeah.
but fit in beautifully and very cool design. And then just the block away was the one that he built. It's kind of similar that they lived in. I mean, you can see the influence in there for sure.
Where was that?
That is on 24th and right off Garfield, just west of Garfield, about 2 houses in.
Is that the one Jerry Dicker owned for a while, or?
Mm-mm.
No?
You remember the address? Okay.
But if you between Hatch and Garfield, you can't miss it.
This is the one with the waterfall in front of it?
No waterfall.
Oh, that's-
No, definitely not a waterfall.
Oh, okay.
24th,
of course I didn't-
Sherry Barnard, my friend.
I just wanted to say I'm one of the oldest people here, and I knew Betsy when she was just a brownie or a Girl Scout. I won't tell any of those stories.
Nor will I.
Her mother was a wonderful friend of mine, Betty Lawrence, and I can remember sitting in that home and having tea with her, and she got older beautifully and was very, very proud of her family. So I'm the lucky one that spent time with her.
Thank you. Our friend Sherry Barnard was just talking about how lovely our mom was. So thank you. She was,
What was the age difference between your grandfather and Kirkland?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know when Kirtland Cutter, what is the age difference between Pehrson and Cutter? I don't know what year Cutter was born. So Pehrson is 1880.
Yeah. We'll have to Google it. Yeah. There's a Wikipedia page about her grandpa.
Well, I would say it was probably at least 20 years because the kennel house was built in 1889.
All right, I know we need to get out of the library in a very few minutes. Is there anything else we can help with?
Well, I would like to address the gentleman's point here about Cutter. And I want to stress that we're not anti-Kirtland Cutter, because without Cutter, we wouldn't have Spokane as it is. There are many iconic buildings and lots of things. Hey. It's
Cutter was born in 1860, so he was.
20 years. Cutter was born in 1860.
Yeah.
Boy, look at you.
Look at you.
A hard copy
Okay.
book here.
Thank you.
So 20 years difference. But yes, you know, our thing is to absolutely give Cutter the credit that he did for things he did for, and give credit to the people that did other things. So
Do you know if I'm just trying to remember, I know I've read it before, but the Paulson building is connected to the other Paulson building, right? There's two
Yes.
buildings there, and the shorter one was built first, is that correct?
correct. There's a question there. There's a Paulson building and a Paulson Medical Dental Center. The Paulson building is the shorter one. It was built first, designed by somebody totally different. And then Pehrson came along and did the medical dental. And as you've seen in the picture, the medical dental has kind of that stair step look, and so it's a pretty iconic place. I don't know what's going on.
Somebody wanted the name of the author of this book, so
Okay.
I just jumped on chat.
Is it called Anatomic Kirkland or Atomic?
An Atomic City, Richland and Atomic City.
Yeah,
Okay.
not anatomic.
Yeah.